You're watching Overreaction Monday. I'm Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report, after the Silver and Black got their asses whooped against the Denver Broncos, snapping an 8-game winning streak. Coming up here on today's show, we're going to talk about the three biggest topics that I see going around the Silver and Black as it stands right now. I'm going to tell you whether you should believe it or whether it's an overreaction. But I know this: Raider Nation deserves better. And I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of wanting more from this football team. I don't know what exactly it's going to take, but I know this: we need a football team that shows up the way Raider Nation does. We need a team that gives a shit every single day, because based on the week after week after week BS that we have already seen this season, y'all need to be concerned how bad this team could potentially be. And it starts at the very, very top with Mark Davis, and it goes all the way down. So if you believe that Raider Nation deserves more, I want you to hit that subscribe button. I saw a lot of people saying, I'm done with this team, I'm not doing it anymore. Well, here's the thing. I need you. Chugs need you. Quite frankly, I think we need each other. And I think we got to be able to do a better job last season of creating that voice and getting loud together. Raider Nation deserves more. And if you believe in that and you want to get your voice heard, subscribe, because I promise you this: we're loud individually. I know I'm loud individually. Together, we could be really loud. So loud enough to get a head coach fired like Josh McDaniels. So make sure you're subscribed. Coming up here on today's show, we're going to get into some overreactions that I know for a fact are going to upset some people. I'm going to say some things today because I'm still a little bit teed off about the game that happened last night. Quite frankly, I'm more upset today than I was last night, because last night I felt like a parent where I was like, I'm not mad. I'm just so disappointed that I got this excited to show up on a game day, on a day where it was my fiance's birthday, and I said, you know what? I still got to be able to come to work because I have a job to do. Though the Raiders players that showed up yesterday, the coaching staff, they didn't show up because, and I don't even know if they knew that they had a job to do. The biggest thing that you're going to get from today's show is this: the Raiders need a quarterback. This is for just win, babies. Believe it, baby. If you don't think that the Raiders need a quarterback, your IQ is zero. If you think Gardner Minshew is going to be good enough to win football games on a consistent basis this season, IQ zero. If you think Aidan O'Connell is good enough to win games at a consistent pace in the NFL with this team, IQ zero. So if we're going to sit up here and talk about just win, baby, commitment to excellence, AP and Telesco, I'm looking at both of y'all right now, and I'm going to say this: if you don't make a change at the quarterback position, if you don't try to do something, if you continuously roll out the two guys that you got right now, and I don't want to hear anybody say Carter Bradley. We got Carter Bradley questions yesterday. That's idiotic as well. But if you're going to continuously try to roll out the two guys you got, you're not going to have a job next season. Gardner Minshew, 12 of 17, 137 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. What's crazy is Minshew was 9 for 9 to start off that game, and he looked like a quarterback like he couldn't miss. He looked like Steph Curry in the Olympics, just throwing shots up, and shit was just landed. And then after that pick six to Patrick Surtain, I know we call him guard dog. Gardner Minshew, I don't know if we picked the right quarterback or if he was just picking his nose, but he looked like a dog that just pooped in the corner. He had his ears down, his tail between his legs. You're not going to win football games when the leader, the guy wearing a C on his chest, looks like a little puppy that you just yelled at in the corner. And then Aidan O'Connell goes out there, and I'm not going to be the guy that's going to sit up here and say, I told you so, but that's what Aidan O'Connell is. He's not a mobile quarterback. Throws another pick to Patrick Surtain. We're lucky that he didn't get called for a safety because, quite frankly, I still think it was a safety. I think both of his feet were in the end zone. I don't know how it wasn't called. I know that this team can be better. We all know this team can be better. Quite frankly, how this team won 2 games and one of them up against the Baltimore Ravens still blows my mind. But you're not going to win games when your quarterback play is this bad. Gardner Minshew this season, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 1,000 yards. I mean, if I told you this, that Gardner Minshew right now was on a 17-game pace to have 3,448 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 17 interceptions, if I were to tell you that a starting quarterback in the NFL would be putting up those numbers, guess what? You're not going to win many football games this season. I had a hope that the Raiders were going to win 9, potentially 10 games. That was with the hope that this defense was going to be able to show up. Defense kind of stinks right now, too. And Antonio Pierce, after that press conference, declined to name a starting quarterback, Week 6 against the Steelers. Good. I don't know if it's Gardner. I don't know if it should be Aidan O'Connell. Quite frankly, both of these guys stink. Both of these guys are not top 30 quarterbacks in the NFL, and we're going to try to roll out one of those guys. We'll find out. This is going to be the pinned comment here on today's show. I'm going to tell you, if I was AP, if I'm Telesco, which one of these two guys I would end up starting. Week 6 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are also coming up off a loss. Let me take a breath here. Who's going to start for the Raiders? AOC, Gardner Minshew. Let me know who you would pick. My answer is simple, and it depends what the Raiders are looking to do. If the Raiders are legitimately trying to win football games this season, and they are only willing to pick from the quarterbacks that are on their roster, you go with Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew is the better quarterback than Aidan O'Connell. His mobility, and when I think about the best that this Raiders offense has looked this season, 2 games come to mind. Fourth quarter against Baltimore, and then quarters second and third, and maybe even that first quarter yesterday. Every time I think about when this offense has looked its absolute best, it's with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. If the Raiders want to tank and they want to try to get a QB early in the 2025 NFL draft, like a Cam Ward, like a Jalen Milroe, maybe Shedeur Sanders, Carson Beck, whoever the hell it may be, then you start Aidan O'Connell. If the Raiders are in tank season, you go with Aidan. But here's the other thing. If you're the Raiders, you need to consider finding a quarterback elsewhere, because I'm serious when I say this. Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco will not have a job in 2025 if they continuously roll out Aidan and Gardner. You can go back in early in my videos way back when these two were hired, and I wanted AP to be hired. I didn't want Telesco to be hired. I'm not going to lie to y'all, but I wanted AP to be hired. And I also said this is going to be a failed season unless the Raiders add a quarterback. I know that AP put all of his eggs in the Jaden Daniels basket. And I know that they were hoping when they went out and signed Gardner Minshew that they were going to be able to get Jaden Daniels. But here's the thing. If you're going to continuously do the same thing over and over and over again, that is literally the definition of insanity. And I think a lot of Raider fans got to realize here, this is not so much of a knock just on AP and Telesco. It's you got to look at the future, and if our future is a 2025 QB, like the video right now, raise your hand in the air. If you want the Raiders to draft a quarterback in 2025, I don't think Antonio Pierce or Tom Telesco can be a part of that regime. So here's my next question. Is this AP and Telesco's final season with the Las Vegas Raiders? I know it's Overreaction Monday, and maybe this is a little bit of an overreaction, but I'm going to give it 4 just win babies, and I'm saying that because based off of what we've seen in a 5-game sample size, and I understand that the Raiders have 2 wins, but if you watch those first 5 games of this season, and if anybody's sitting up here going, the Raiders are a good team, you're lying to yourself. And if you're going to be somebody that wants the Raiders to draft a quarterback in 2025, there's no way that you can legitimately look me in the eyes and say, I believe in our current staff to draft the future of our team at quarterback, to be able to build that quarterback and do what you need to do. Did the Raiders do a good job of Brock Bowers? Looks like we got a nice one there. I love what I've seen out of JPJ. I think DJ Glade is going to turn out to be a good player. But we're talking about a quarterback here. We're talking about the franchise and being able to build that offense. I don't trust Antonio Pierce based off of what he showed me this season to build a good offensive regime. I don't trust Luke Getsy to build a quarterback that we could potentially draft in the top 5 picks. I don't trust Rich Scangarillo to go out and build a quarterback the way that we need a franchise quarterback. So I'm sitting up here going, if we're going to legitimately draft a Cam Ward, a Jalen Milroe, Shedeur Sanders, whoever the hell it is, it has to be somebody else at the helm. And if you're going to draft a quarterback, you need an offensive-minded head coach, not a head coach that doesn't call plays on either offense or defense. If I'm the Raiders right now, these are 5 guys that I'm keeping an eye on. And if the Raiders want to draft a QB in the top 10, in the top 5 picks, I'll say it right now, if you're drafting a quarterback in the top 5, because you're in the top 5, give me Ben Johnson, Bobby Slovic, Joe Brady, Todd Monken, Klint Kubiak. You can give me any of those guys, and I think that that would give us a better shot, a better position at being able to go out and get our dude. Now, if the Raiders want to go, all right, Mitch, well, I want to be able to keep AP. I want to be able to keep Tom Telesco because Mark Davis is tight on money, whatever the hell it might be. well, then you need to fire Luke Getsy, you need to fire Rich Scangarillo, and you need to figure out a way to bring in one of these 10 guys on that screen right now to be your new OC and to actually build his staff and build around what you're trying to do in the 2025 season, because you cannot trust Antonio Pierce, Luke Getsy, Rich Scangarillo based off of what we've seen this offseason, based off of what we've seen this season, to be able to trust those guys with having a franchise quarterback going forward. And it's that simple. It's really that simple. Let's keep it going here. Why AP and Telesco could be done. The Raiders got worse this offseason. The Raiders fired Josh McDaniels, and AP was good last year, 5-4 as an interim head coach, and I think, he did a good job rallying this team. But let's talk about 2023 versus 2024. Did the Raiders get better at the quarterback position overall? Yes. Yes, they did. Not saying a lot. Gardner Minshew Aidan O'Connell is better than Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer, Aidan O'Connell. But, I'll also say this. Aidan kind of looks like he's gotten worse. I think Aidan looks like he's gotten worse from an entire offseason where he was potentially the starting quarterback. That's a scary thought considering who we had at the position last year. Running back, I agree that you don't pay Josh Jacobs, but this running back group, worse. Wide receiver group, now that you're losing Davante Adams, has gotten worse. Your tight end group does look good, but one of your young tight ends that you just drafted in round 2 wants no part of this organization anymore. Your offensive line has got significantly worse. I'm talking about one of the worst offensive lines in the National Football League, and I know that you lost Carmen Brasillo, but your job as a head coach, your job as a team in general, is to be able to bring in the right coaches to be able to get the job done. And AP did not do a good job with that at all on offense because he's trusting people that have no business being trusted. But that's on offense. Now let's go to the defense. The defense has gotten worse this season. If you're going to be a defensive-minded head coach, you expect the defense to get better. Yeah, the defensive line has gotten better from a names on paper standpoint, and I know that Malcolm Kuntz has gotten injured, and I know that Tyree Wilson has gotten a little bit better. I do still think that the defensive line has done a good job, but the defensive line really wasn't the problem. Our linebacker group has gotten worse. I think our corners have done a good job, which you got to give a lot of credit to that coaching staff. The safeties have gotten worse. The special teams are the exact same. So to me, when I look at overall talent evaluation, I look at how did we do this offseason? The Raiders got worse this offseason. Then you look at the fundamentals. AP's somebody who, you can look at coaches and how well they're able to go out there and coach and teach. It's a very important thing. The Raiders right now are the worst tackling team in the National Football League, and their PFF grade entering Week 5 was 29. I don't know what it is right now because I'm making this video early in the morning, but I guarantee you this, it's not going to be good. Think about how many missed tackles, how many missed opportunities, how much sloppy play this team is playing with on a weekly, consistent basis. And not only that, you're not showing any improvements. If you were to yell at your kids for something, if you were to yell at your significant other for doing the exact same thing over and over and over again, you would sit up there, I would sit there and go, well, maybe you're not teaching them the right way. Maybe you're not doing something the right way. And I get it's easy to blame somebody else. But right now, this football team, the fundamentals are not there. They are not playing fundamental football. You have an offensive coordinator, looks like he's calling high school plays, and you have a Raiders football team right now from a fundamental tackling standpoint. They look like a high school football team out there with simple fundamentals. It's embarrassing how fundamentally unsound this Raiders football team is right now. They look like a bunch of chickens with their head cuts off. It's really, really frustrating. Coming up, more reasons why this could be it for AP and Telesco, but I will tell you about our sponsor here, Game Time. I love Game Time, and I know I'm going to say this right now. If you're planning on going to that Raiders and Steelers game, I hope that you plan on some other things to do around your weekend because I have a feeling it's not going to be very enjoyable on that Sunday. Now, I love being able to go to events, whether it's a concert, whether it is a game day, but you know what? I think the other really cool part is being able to create those lasting memories, and Game Time is here to help you do that. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS. That's CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Somebody needs to tell the Raiders that it's game time because they're not showing up when it actually is game time. Now, maybe they're all sitting there in the locker room before the game gets going because they're not up. If the Raiders are actually getting prepared for a football game, then we should maybe be even more concerned. Maybe they're on their phones right now looking up some of the best ticket prices. Maybe they're looking at the game time picks, because I know this, they're not looking at anything else that they need to be looking at. Maybe the Raiders, maybe some of these other guys need to bench all the starters, put some other people in, and have the starters go on the Game Time app and watch a game and just realize how much of a roller coaster ride this is. Let's go to another reason here why AP and Telesco could be done. The poor coaching decisions are just happening way too often. Now, the first one that jumps up to my mind from yesterday was when the Raiders had, it was like third down and 5. And they were at, I want to say like the 45, 46-yard line. And it's 3rd down and 5. The Raiders run it to get down to 4th and 2. But then you punt on 4th down and 2. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's just idiotic. And, you know, you can go back even to earlier in the season when it's ball at the 43-yard line and Antonio Pierce decides to punt and then goes on that podium and says, no, I would have done it again. You can't go up there when you know that you did something wrong and not admit that you did something wrong. And I hope people can go down to the comments on today's show and tell me all the different examples of just when I say idiotic coaching decisions that this team makes, I mean idiotic coaching decisions. The amount of times they run just for the sake of running, the amount of wild play calls that happen, the amount of times where something is working and then in a snap of a finger we totally go away from it. I know Antonio Pierce is supposed to be that motivator, but he's not doing a very good job right now of motivating those guys, which is, here's my next point. If one of your top reasons why you were hired is to be a player coach and to be a motivator, that way the team never quits, this team either quits or is horrific too often. So I'm looking right now at Antonio Pierce and I'm going, either you're doing a bad job getting these guys prepared, or Telesco, you did a bad job of being able to build a roster, because the amount of times that the Raiders look like the worst football team in the NFL, 3 quarters against the Baltimore Ravens, the second half against the Los Angeles Chargers, the entire game against the Carolina Panthers, and then the last 3 quarters against the Denver Broncos. If you were to put those teams on tape, that is so much bad tape where you're either quitting or you're legitimately one of the worst teams in the NFL, and both of which are a black eye on the organization, both of which are a black eye on your head coach and your general manager. And then here's my last reason. The Raiders have no identity right now. I always said last season, and I've always said this, football teams, I'll say teams in general, whether it's Little League, whether it's you're in the Army, like if you're a platoon, if you're a sergeant, your team is going to take on the identity of its leader. And the fact that this team right now doesn't have an identity, I don't think that they know who they are. And, you know, I always said, like, you know, when Josh McDaniels was the head coach, the team didn't have an identity because the head coach doesn't have an identity. Right now, the Raiders are playing like a team that doesn't have an identity, and that makes me think that they don't have a head coach. Like, when you look at the product that is being put on the field at a consistent basis, time and time again, this is a bad product on the field. And whether you like to hear that or not, that starts at the top. Mark, starts with you, and then it goes to AP, then it goes down. And yeah, the players deserve to be blamed too. They're making millions of dollars for shitty effort. But this team clearly has no identity, and that falls on your shoulders, your head coach, especially one who is a motivator. So here's your opportunity to be honest and get those red pens out. And I want you to grade how you think Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco have done this year. A, B, C, D, or F. My answer after this YouTube ad break. I know it might surprise y'all that I'm not giving this an F, but I'm not giving an F simply because I don't think it's fair to give it an F. And I say that because they won 2 games. Winning a game in the NFL is not easy. Winning 2 games in the NFL is not easy. But I don't want to use a Davante Adams quote, but you remember the quote from last year. He doesn't measure it just on wins and losses. He measures it on greatness. The rabbit foot that the Raiders pulled out against Baltimore is incredible. And then when you look at how bad right now the Cleveland Browns are, they look like legitimately one of the worst teams in the NFL. So the fact that we beat those 2 teams, again, we got lucky against Baltimore, but the Chargers, we looked really bad. The Panthers, we looked like the worst team in the NFL. And against the Broncos, we looked like one of the worst teams in the NFL. The Raiders failed to find a quarterback this offseason. The offense stinks. The defense has regressed. And we did all of this when having plenty of money in salary cap. Now, I don't know if I don't know if Mark Davis is not trying to give away that salary cap. Same way, like I don't know if we're going to actually try to go out and get a quarterback, because if you are trying to recruit that Ben Johnson or that good offensive-minded coach for next season, you want to have extra salary cap. You want to have extra draft capital. So I get all those reasons. But, like, it's so close to being an F, but you can't give it an F because they did figure out a way to win 2 games. Let's go to the final thing here for Overreaction Monday. The Raiders clearly need Davante Adams. This is an overreaction. The Raiders were bad yesterday without Davante. They were. And I would have loved to see how that game could have gone if Minshew didn't throw that pick, because the offense in the first quarter yesterday, I mean, they were rolling. They look like the best offense that this team has been all season long. But the Raiders were bad with Davante Adams. It's not like they were good with Davante and now all of a sudden they're not. The Raiders were bad with Davante Adams. I was told last week that the Raiders would trade Adams on Tuesday, October 8th. There's also been reports out there that it could happen at any time right now in the next 48 hours. There's been some people that say it could happen at the end of the week. I'm simply just sharing with you what I have been told. But I will guarantee you this, because Tay wants to be traded ASAP, because multiple teams are interested in Davante, and the teams that are interested in Davante all basically lost yesterday. You add up all those reasons, and Davante will get traded this week. I'm telling you right now. The Jets, according to the latest odds, are the favorite at -150. Doesn't surprise me whatsoever. The Saints, they play on Monday Night Football tonight, but we know that he wants to play with this guy, Derek. The Steelers lost last night, and, maybe they could use an extra receiver. That's still a good team. The Commanders right now, if they want to really take advantage of this NFC East battle, I don't know if they need Davante, which is crazy to say because of how efficient they've been, but it could be a guy to keep in mind. The Bills lost yesterday. The Cowboys are always going to be a team being thrown out there. Davante posted that picture of Edgar Allan Poe with the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know who's exactly going to do it. If I was a betting man, I would say it's going to be the New York Jets simply because of that connection there with Aaron Rodgers. But the fact that both Buffalo and New York lost yesterday, I do think it'd spike up that price. I don't see the Raiders getting a first-round pick, but I do see the Raiders getting a second and then maybe like a 4th or 5th, whether that be in 26 or whatever the hell it may be. If you're the Raiders and you're going to trade away Davante Adams, especially after what you saw yesterday, you can't get a player in that trade. You have to get as many picks as humanly possible. That way you can use those picks to go get yourself a franchise quarterback. I don't care. Do we need offensive line help? Absolutely. Do we need another receiver? Sure. But at the end of the day, until you get a franchise quarterback that can go out there and compete on a normal basis, you're not going to win in the NFL. So take those picks that you use from Davante Adams and use them for next season to go get a damn quarterback. And I don't want you to trade for anybody this season. I really don't. I want the Raiders to be a team that goes out and gets a QB next season, which isn't a fair thing to say because I already said that if you don't get a new quarterback, AP and Telesco are going to get fired. There's a lot of ways that this could go. Me as a Raider fan, I want to look forward to the future, and that's a franchise quarterback. Unfortunately for AP and Telesco, I think that they're going to end up not having a job because there's not a quarterback that you can get this year. But you know what? You kind of shot yourself in the foot there. So one more time, Overreaction Monday. The Raiders need a quarterback. That's for just win, babies. Believe it, baby. If I can get Cam Ward or Jalen Milroe, I would do a backflip right now. Is this going to be AP and Telesco's final season? I kind of think it is because I don't know if they're going to be able to find a quarterback. And if you have a top 5 pick, you got to go out and get an offensive-minded head coach. Do the Raiders need Davante Adams? That's an overreaction. This offense was bad with Davante Adams. Before I get out of here, though, I do got to give a shout-out to our MVP yesterday. Shout out to Nelly Fig. Dude pulled up, had 3 bangs on our Broncos show. And when you guys decide to pull up, it means the world to me. So, Nelly, that's a real one right there. I'm going to get you guys a video a little bit later on today about some quarterbacks that the Raiders could potentially look at for this season. We'll have another show tomorrow, and then Jeremy and I, we're probably going to go live a little bit earlier tomorrow just because we're going to be on Davante Adams Trade Watch.